Yeah, that's sad. We had like a timer thing. We got all professional in here.
Oh, so it doesn't go too long, or?
Yeah, so
Just so we know how
we have
long.
some idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Because like after 4 hours, the computer melts down, and then it's like we lose.
Andrew
Mhm.
said like the worst words. He's like, I'll take care of it, and then
He's
he's like, oh man, like
Oh no.
yeah.
It's still loading, I promise.
It's the best, like when you're trying to like when you have something and you're like, I'm gonna put it in this drawer so I don't forget it.
Oh,
And
and
it's
you're
almost
like
like-
hiding it from yourself.
Yeah, it's
I'm gonna put it somewhere where I
Uh-huh.
know I will not forget it.
Oh, yep.
But it's so good that
Never
I forgot.
find it.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then you have to travel and you're like, where did I put my
I'm
passport?
gonna go find this thing.
Oh,
He's going to look for it.
It's gotta be in here somewhere.
Is it the one that you bought that we were using?
Yeah, the thing that we used in LA.
That was a good one.
I know, we somehow had a hard time with like a timer. I don't know why, but like we tried.
like they just kept disappearing.
Well, they just didn't work.
Oh,
It would
It's
like
like-
get
yeah.
to like 30 minutes. Actually, it got to like 15 minutes, and then it would just say
9999
every time.
Yeah.
oh, jeez.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. Did you find it?
For now, we
Oh.
could just use this one right here, bro, because this one works. I can see it. So
Oh yeah.
All right.
my eyesight's
Well, we
good
can-
enough at this point.
We can go long enough. We can go however long we need.
3 hours.
Oh, huh, there we go.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, you're on the ticker. You got 10 seconds to talk.
That's it.
What's going on, Colleen Fotsch?
Not a whole lot. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
It's been so long.
yeah, it's been a while since we
Yeah.
had you here at Super Training.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I think it was back in maybe 2015 even.
Yeah.
Yeah, since I
Wow.
was here. Or I was here one other time, not on the podcast, just when Jen Wiederstrom was in
Right.
town. And I was actually still in my sling.
No.
I mean, hey, everybody listening's thinking the same thing you're thinking. Everyone's kind of thinking,
No,
like, hey,
just-
now, like, you know, she's a very beautiful woman.
That was just a It's not
Yeah.
not like a
No, it's
not like that. Come on now. Come on now.
Well, it's not like we don't have audio and video.
no, it's as if it would have been the same reaction if we said, "Oh man, I had a delicious chocolate chip brownie." You know,
Y'all
Man, that
gonna
was
get me in
bad.
fucking trouble.
I know. Every once in a while, we do have to delete stuff from the show. That might be one of them. We just can't say her name again, I guess.
Fuck. Okay.
And you haven't been to this facility yet, right?
Right, yeah, first time. This is insane.
Cool.
It's incredible.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we had a good workout today, and you were showing us some front squats, and then you showed me some really brutal stuff that you can do with just a dumbbell.
Yeah.
And I know that your coach, we had James Fitzgerald, right? He's one of the coaches, or he owns the gym that you train at.
Right.
And then
yeah.
you have a different coach that actually trains with you, but under the same principles, I'd imagine, right?
Right.
And you guys just sometimes just kill yourself with dumbbells, right?
Oh yeah, and lots of other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes dumbbells.
I see videos of you doing like front squats with 100-pound dumbbells, and I'm like, how does she even figure out how to get them up there for that? Like, how are you doing some of this?
So
What, you got camera
for
tricks or something?
the-
Fake weights?
yeah, they're hollow. No, actually, for that, I asked my coach Sam. I was like, "Do you want me to try and clean these to my shoulders?" He was like, "Not today." So, so luckily, I had some help actually from James and then Amanda, who also is training at OPEX, and so they helped me up. So I put one on my shoulder, and then James stood up on a bench and handed
There you
the other
go.
one to me. Yeah.
I watch some of your stuff sometimes, and I'm like, I'm gonna give that a shot. And I think you were doing like 100 pounds or maybe 90 pounds on a particular day. You were doing one-arm snatches.
hmm
And I start messing with it, and I get to like 50, and then I get to like 70, and I'm like, these are really fucking hard. I'm like, I shouldn't try to compete with Colleen. I'm just gonna stay in my own lane. I just use the 70s. How are you getting so strong on some of this stuff?
I mean, Sam has made me just so much, not only stronger, but so much more well-rounded. And I think especially with dumbbells, I feel like it's a totally different kind of strength than a barbell when everything's just really nicely set up, you know? And especially he's a huge fan of the 100-pound dumbbell. So we've been doing a lot of power snatches. squat snatching a 100-pound dumbbell was one of the more scary things I've ever
Holy
had to
shit.
do.
Like a one-arm squat snatch?
Yeah.
Fuck!
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, oh, that's me. Yeah. But yeah, mostly because it's just terrifying. Like you're like, this could go horribly if I
Yeah.
don't do it correctly.
Yeah, if you
but
kind of
yeah.
don't, if you don't catch it right and have your elbow locked real well, if your
Mhm.
elbow's bent as you go to like whip the weight up,
Yeah.
you're done.
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna come back down on top of you, right?
Yeah.
You know, I saw you doing some actually really dope stuff with kettlebells a few days ago in like a hotel or something. But I'm also wondering, like, do you do a lot of this stuff with like heavy kettlebells too? Because I feel like it'll be a little bit less awkward, right, than doing that with the dumbbell. Or am I wrong?
I think it's person to person. And it might just be because I use dumbbells more, but I'm more comfortable using dumbbells than kettlebells. But yeah, I think that video you're talking about, I was actually home for the holidays, and I was in my parents' like basement gym, and the workout was supposed to be dumbbells, but we didn't have the dumbbells I needed. They weren't heavy enough.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, so this was, I think, significantly harder with kettlebells, but I just may not be as efficient with them.
How heavy are those?
53 each.
Ooh, Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's at your parents' house, you said?
Yeah.
It's been really cool to watch your progress because, yeah, I mean, you've always been strong, but I haven't known you to be this strong, and I haven't known you to be this lean.
Yeah.
You look amazing too, and even in that
Thank
picture
you.
right there, or that video where you're pressing the weight overhead, you know, you're really like shredding up, and you were in great shape before. Is this kind of a culmination of like everything just coming together, training, you know, proper training, proper sleep, and proper nutrition?
Yeah, I think like we were talking earlier, you know, when I moved out to Arizona to start working with my big dogs coach, Sam, you know, I thought that it was just the training I needed to dial in. And granted, that has changed so much since my move out to Arizona, but there was so much more that I needed to dial in. And that's with nutrition, with sleep, better recovery on my off days. And I think just really honing in all that stuff along with my training has made a huge difference.
You have an app or anything like to track your sleep or anything like that? Or you just
Not my sleep. I've been thinking about getting one of those Whoop bands just to see.
Just check it out.
Yeah.
I swear, you're like the sixth person that I've heard of like the Whoop from today. You know,
Yeah,
it's so
I've heard a lot
crazy.
of good things about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have a Aura ring, and it just, you know, I got into messing around with some of that stuff maybe about 2 years ago, and then it actually made me like sleep. It made me feel more tired because I was trying to sleep, but like apparently I don't get that much deep sleep. So I was.
So then you're like, wait, I'm not getting more sleep. So you're thinking about it more. Yeah.
Like from like a placebo effect, you know, like just made me feel more tired. So I just haven't really looked at it much, but I do have an Aura ring, and it tells you like everything. Tells you everything about your sleep. Tells you about a lot about your activity. It doesn't track you through like a real workout though, but it will tell you about. It will tell you like, you know, throughout the day, like, hey, you should get moving, or hey, you know, reach this amount of activity for the day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
You track your food though, right? And you have an app for that, or have worked with some people on stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so I work with Macro Stacks, and it's an app where you can. I mean, my coach and I work on my set macros for the day, but this one, if you do get it, it does allow you to, you know, have someone come up with macros that you get in a day. And before that, I was using MyFitnessPal, and then this thing came along, and I've just found it to be a lot easier. And it's just easier when I track it because I stay a lot more consistent with all that stuff, which makes a big difference.
And Nsima, let's see if we can do some math here. 170 grams of protein.
Or like
So,
150.
150
160
in grams of protein,
Yeah.
80 grams of fat,
Mm-hmm.
and 350 grams of carbs. How many calories is that? 350 grams of carbs,
How much grams of fat?
80.
Shaking
Okay.
his head.
And
He's
then
like-
what?
150 in protein.
Okay. 12.
I just want to make a point here that she's probably like eating like everyone that listens to the show, like under the table probably, and they're just not like.
Oh, that's what, 2,000 calories?
yeah.
What the fuck?
That's over.
Is
yeah.
it over?
Yeah.
a little
I'm
more.
usually hitting like 20, probably like 24, 2,500.
24,
I think.
2,500?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I did the math wrong, but
Yeah, that sounds about right.
that came. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not, well, even if it's 2,400, like, for how much work you do,
Mm-hmm.
and how many carbs did you say you eat?
Like 350, 360.
353. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's more than that. I didn't do 350, right? But wow, that's not a lot of calories.
That's not
Cool.
too crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she keeps the fat kind of moderate, but yeah, the carbs being at 350. You know, we talk a lot on this show about the carbs being lower, but for your activity level and for the stuff that you're doing, and we also talk about. Well, it really depends on what your goals are.
Right.
You know, a lot of people in America are just heavy, and they need to lose some weight. And going for a walk and reducing their carbohydrate intake could maybe steer them away from foods that they're addicted to. And
Right.
maybe they can kind of like then be on their way to start to lose some weight. And then they can find whatever diet they want that they think they can manage for a long period of time. Because if you can manage it for a long period of time, you'll have great success with it because you'll be more consistent with it.
Right.
But for yourself, I mean, you're working out multiple times a day. So it just would not work if all you ate was like meat, or if all you had was like bacon and cheese and eggs.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. I don't think it would feel very good either, going from one workout to another with all that fat in your system.
Right. Yeah.
Correction, by the way, it was 2720.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's
There we go. Because I am not going to have someone be like, Nsima, that was wrong. So let's go back. So yeah, 2720. Okay.
Should we go back and check my macros, make sure we're okay?
No, you're fucking good, bro. Sorry for interrupting you, Colleen.
No, you're totally good.
All right.
Yeah, how many calories were you eating, Andrew?
I don't know. Nsima, where am I?
Or where were you though when you were dropping?
I was like 240 protein, and then at the very end, 50 carbs, 50 fat. And then towards the end, the protein pretty much stayed the same the whole way. But
Well, I told you not to let your fats go down to 50, but you.
No, not me.
Uh-oh, here we go again.
Said for the last week that I would go down to 50.
In terms of fat?
Prior to that,
That's
as I
brutal.
was saying,
Okay.
it was at 70, or it was
Okay, there we
80,
go.
70, and then that last week was 50. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then carbs were like 120, then they went down to 100, and then again that last week they got cut in half. And then right now they're at 180. Yeah.
Is it hard at all for you to eat that amount of carbs? Like, are you kind of like worried something bad's gonna happen to you? Since there's like a carbophobia out there, right?
Yeah. So we were talking about this earlier. I think that for me, being one of the larger athletes in CrossFit, and I think growing up, it's never been hard for me to put on weight or mass. And so even though I know that I need those extra carbs, and Sam's really good about even looking ahead a week and being like, hey, this next week's going to be a little bit higher volume and stuff. So we're going to up your carbs before we even get there, just to get a head start on it. And I know I need it. And I'm also, a lot of the times when I am, the volume goes up, I'm usually hungrier. And so, but I think there is a little bit in me that's like, oh man, but I don't want to be heavier because it's going to make some things harder. And but I think that's just, but I have to tell myself, I'm like, hey, like, you need that, and you're going to feel like absolute garbage if you don't. And I don't want to get injured or anything, so I don't need to be like restricting. Also, I don't like being hungry. So,
For sure. Was there
yeah.
a time in the past that because you landed on this and you're performing like a beast, but when in the past, like, did you really realize that I'm fucking up in terms of my nutrition and I need to switch things? Like, what were you trying? What different things did you try?
So in college, I thought I knew what was healthy and what was not, but I just had no knowledge of, I didn't know what macros were. I mean, in swimming, bagels were their own food group. Like, I was eating God only knows how many carbs I was eating a day, but I also needed it because I was swimming hours and hours every day.
You think it was more or less than now?
Maybe more, but I think the balance of protein to fat to carbs was just all over the place. And I think also just, I love chips. I still love chips. And so I would eat like the baked Lay's every day because I'm like, these are healthy. This is perfect. I'm like, just stuff like that. And so when actually getting into CrossFit really helped me meet different people and also gain a lot more knowledge on nutrition. I definitely tried some programs that, because my goal was always to, I think when I first got into it, I was like, I just want to weigh less and I want to be really lean, or I want to be small. And so I definitely restricted myself a lot. And so I would be crazy about my diet throughout the week. And then I was allotted one cheat meal. It was supposed to be like a meal that, that you just weren't tracking. But like I would go crazy because I was so hungry throughout the week and depriving myself so much that like on Saturday night,
it was a big event.
Oh, it was. I would go to like different places. I was in Berkeley at the time, different places in Berkeley, and there's great food there.
Yeah.
And I would just collect it all, bring it home. I'm by myself. This is like, I'm like, this is kind of sad. And then I just eat it all until I felt sick. And then on Sunday, I'm like, okay, well, I definitely don't want that anymore. But then by the time next Saturday rolls around,
kind of amazing. Could you picture like you see this beautiful blonde girl going from like place to place with like all this food? You're walking down the street with like a pizza and brownies stacked on top of it, and a thing of Ben & Jerry's trying to like balance it as you're walking to your car.
Yeah.
That was weird. Like, what's that girl doing?
We're all guilty of that, though.
Oh yeah,
we are all guilty of that.
Yeah. When I was with my daughter one day, and we went to Baskin Robbins, and she's like, you're gonna get some ice cream on me. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna get some ice cream. She's like, Dad, because she's like, don't talk like that or something. Like, and then of course I get like the biggest ice cream. She's like, that's a huge amount of ice cream. I said, yeah, and after this we're going over to Insomnia Cookie because it's like right across the street, and we like load up on these like giant cookies. I buy like $50 worth of cookies just because I'm like buying with my eyes. I'm not even paying attention to like what's going on. I'm like eating them in the car and stuff, and Quinn's looking at me like I'm crazy. She's like, "Oh, I could see why you don't usually eat like this." I said, "Yeah, see what happens to me? Like it turns me into an animal."
I do have cookies, probably like maybe one. I make really good dark chocolate peanut butter sea salt cookies.
What?
And so I eat them like once a week.
Dark chocolate.
Yeah,
peanut butter.
They're really good. But so I make them and I eat a few, and then I have to bring the rest to the gym because I can't be like, because I don't want to be eating them every day.
Do you eat the cookie dough?
No, I like them. I like them when they're all done.
I always eat the cookie dough. I never make it to cooking any of them.
Yeah,
really?
I don't make it that far.
Yeah, one of the best things Mark's ever said. He was like, we were talking about cookies or whatever, and Mark's like, "Well, don't go ruining that dough by baking it."
Yeah. Like, dude. Hey, mess it all
well, now
up.
they sell edible dough. I actually got some of that like the other week. They have it at Whole Foods.
Is that propaganda? Like,
yeah, I know. There's memes about it. Like, is this true, or are they just trying to ruin my life?
Wait, isn't it like I've heard? I don't know if this is a myth, but
isn't it like salmonella poisoning?
Yeah, I've always been scared of eating cookie dough.
I think it's just stuff bullshit our parents made
Yeah, right.
up.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Because it has eggs in it or whatever. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then too. Like, what? Because you're eating a lot of calories, and that's great. What does your food look like on usually like I guess I would maybe say a good day? Is there like, do you have like X amount of whole foods and then you can make other things fit if you want to? Like, how does that structure look like for you?
Like throughout the week, it's pretty clean. I mean, if I am, it's usually sweets for me is what, like if I'm craving something. But usually like Saturday afternoon, like if I am like craving something, I'll just let myself, like the other week it was a donut. I really wanted a donut. So I went and got that. But throughout the week, I just feel better the cleaner it is, especially with training. So, and that's why like on Saturday, if I do let myself eat something that maybe I don't normally eat, I'm not training the next day. So odds are by Monday, I'm going to feel fine if, my stomach just handles it weird.
And along with that, Mark talks a lot, and we talk a lot about having, I guess, control over your diet. And I used to track a lot. I don't track anymore. I just eat. But when I used to track a lot, I was the kind of guy who I would try to let all those things I really want fit like every single day.
Yeah.
And I at the time felt, oh, that's fine. It fits. I'm in control. But looking back at that, I was just making excuses just to make shit fit.
Right.
Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, was there a point where you didn't really have control? And is there something you did or a habit that you brought into your nutritional protocol that gave you control over your diet and helped you feel in control of your food?
Yeah, I definitely think I went through a phase very similar to that, where there were all these snacks, and because I went from a very restrictive diet and then went to just counting macros. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can have anything I want. It just has to fit in these numbers. Yeah. And then I just started not feeling great. And I'll tell, like every now and again, I'll start getting not completely back to that, but I'll be trying to make these certain snacks that I really like fit in. And then I realize that I'm not eating a lot of real food. And so every now and again, I feel like I just have to push the reset button, whether it's like I go a week with no sugar or I go a week without, like for me, like plantain chips and these things that hold foods called peanut butter and jelly bites. Like, it's just like, it's weird things like that where I'll be looking at what I'm eating throughout the day and I'm like, Colleen, you didn't eat, like, you only ate a vegetable once, like, or you know what I mean? It's just, and I know I feel better when I eat real whole foods. So, just checking in, but I mean, we're all human and I think it's hard, like, and I love food. So it's hard to not, go down those paths sometimes, but
it's tough, because that's kind of like the only vice we have because we're athletes and we're always trying to be better. So we're not like really drinking or doing drugs or doing a bunch of other weird, crazy stuff. And so what do we got left? Hey, let's go, let's go grab a cheeseburger or whatever. Right. So it makes it very difficult. And then, sometimes it can kind of tug on some of your social life, being so geared towards what you're doing, especially with 2 or 3 workouts every day. Is there room for a boyfriend in the mix?
Not right now. I think right now just really focusing
Somebody listening's like, what?
I think right now, I've really been just trying to focus on being the best version of me and got a lot of things going on, a lot of amazing things. And it definitely, the thing is, I would say I still feel like it probably doesn't look the same to like what people would normally think a social life is. But to me, like, I feel I'm really blessed to have a lot of amazing friends and family members who support me and don't make me feel weird for, having the goals that I want. Weird for like if I show up to someone's dinner and I have like a Tupperware full of food and they're not just like, what are you doing? Like, that's strange.
Weirdo, what you doing?
Yeah. So it's good. They don't really make too much fun of me for that or like just not wanting to be out late and stuff like that. So yeah.
Would you say like a lot of your, like, I guess the people that you hang out with are within that CrossFit lifting community or like not really?
Yeah, for the most part, like in some way, shape or form. Maybe not at, like the level I'm at, just because like, I think it's hard to find, a ton of elite level CrossFitters like within the same gym. But I would say, because of what I do, that's where I meet most of the people I hang out with, whether it's they're coaching at the gym or training at the gym I go to. But yeah, for the most part, I would say like somewhat fitness related. Yeah.
Okay.
Is training that many times a day, is it like just wear on you, or do you do okay because you have the main goal in mind? Because you mentioned to me that sometimes you train 2 times a day and sometimes you train 3 times a day.
Wow.
There are definitely days where you start to think, why am I really doing all of this? Because some days are just not fun. But I think one thing that my coach Sam and I worked on a ton this year, especially after the games, was reflecting on why I'm doing this and what's the real drive behind it all. Because I think for so long, not just with the CrossFit Games, but in a lot of things in my life, I was always thinking like, okay, when I achieve this, when I get here, then I'll be really happy, or things will be easier, or and I always had this thought in my head of when I get to the CrossFit Games, that's it, and like, not that I would stop competing or whatever or be complacent, but that somehow, training would be easier to get through because I'm a CrossFit Games athlete now, and it doesn't. And, so it's just about really reflecting on that, finding what really drives me, what makes me happy, and I think a lot of it on the days that I just really don't want to be there, having my coach there really helps, and having those really supportive family and friends around me to kind of remind me of why I'm doing it when I start to forget a little bit. But at the end of the day, like there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. So even when I'm like, I really don't want to go to the gym right now. It's like, okay, well, what else would you rather be doing? And I'm like, okay, well, actually nothing else. So, yeah.
You mentioned wanting to be smaller. Does it have an advantage sometimes to be bigger?
Yeah, for sure. In lifting events for sure. Anything like rowing, assault bike definitely tends if you're larger, just more power output. And especially with like odd object stuff, they start incorporating, sandbag cleans, sandbag carries, yoke, stuff like that.
Wow.
There's definitely, there's definitely advantages for taller, heavier people, and then there's going to be the advantages for lighter, shorter people. So
It's almost like, oh,
yeah.
I wish I could be heavier for this exercise, but lighter for this
Right.
one.
No, for
Right.
sure. If I could like go gadget, like legs and arms and like fluctuate my weight or something from event to event.
Do you think in the past maybe you made a mistake of like wanting to be like smaller too much? Like I just think in general in fitness I see that trend amongst men and women. Just you're just people are trying to sometimes to be like too light or too thin, and they're just not eating enough, and then they're worried about like, oh, if I eat too many fat grams, it's gonna make me fat, and all these different things. Do you think maybe you were maybe going a little bit against your own grain, against like the way that you were built and what you have?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say even up till like maybe 4 years ago, I just always wanted to be smaller, and I always felt like I was always on somewhat of a diet. And I think a lot of it for me was more, it had nothing to do with performance. I mean, I would say, oh yeah, I want to be smaller, so muscle ups and pull ups are easier. When in fact, I think I just needed to be stronger and have more muscle endurance in that type of stuff to be better at them. But I think for me, it was always more or less a body image thing, where I was just not, even in college swimming, I wasn't comfortable having like an athletic build. I just always felt so weird. And then especially like even more so after college, because you're more around people. You're not on a swim team, with everyone that looks like you or relatively looks like you. And you go in the real world and people are just like, you look different and not the norm. And I think that messed with my head a little bit. So I do think I was kind of fighting a losing battle, because that's just not what my body wanted to do. And it was also mentally just horrible for me, because I'm just, hating like this body that's doing all these amazing things for me. And and that's one of the most amazing things that CrossFit has given me, is being able to focus on what my body is capable of versus how it looks all the time. And in the consequence of that, it's cool now to be like, I love that my arms are huge. And like, if anything, I just want them to be bigger. And and never in a million years in college, I was just like, I just want to be like this big. And like, so it's really cool to just see that journey. And dealing with a lot of that stuff like on the inside helps, in performance and stuff, in training and competition. So
was there anyone that like was an inspiration for you at that time to, I guess, lean into what your body had, or was it just because like CrossFit and performance, and I guess one day there was a shift? Like, was there a time when you noticed that shift happen for you?
I think a big help was when I started training with one of my best friends, Molly Vollmer, who I actually went on a team with to the CrossFit Games. I just felt like I couldn't figure out food, and I just felt like I felt very helpless. Like I had no control over what my body was doing. And that was at a time when I was being very restrictive with my diet. And I was telling her how much I was eating, and she was like, oh no. She was like, you're probably so unhappy. I was like, I am. And she helped me a lot. Not only, well, it was just nice too, because I didn't really have like a super close friend in that space who knew what I was going through. And I felt like she had been in it for a good amount of time. And, so it was so cool to talk to her about that stuff and the struggles of it. And I'm like, oh, like you get that too. Like, she's like, yeah. And so it was awesome to, get to train with her. And then, now she's one of my best friends. And that really opened my eyes to, just being way better about all that stuff. So
would you say maybe that your sisters are more like kind of quote unquote girly than you are?
Yeah.
Do you think that played into it a little bit as you were growing up, because maybe you were like had more muscle and maybe you thought you were like a tomboy or something like that?
I don't know if it was really like comparing myself to them, but I think I definitely had the mentality of like, I'm a girl, I'm supposed to be tinier, and I always was under the impression like, okay, well, I'm swimming now, so like that's why I'm quote unquote bigger, and once I'm done swimming, like I'm gonna be smaller. And but that just was, I don't know, it wasn't very fulfilling for me. And just trying to go to the gym, but I loved lifting, so that was a problem. Like I associated lifting with being big. But I was like, I love this. So I'd go lift, and then I'd go sit on an elliptical for like an hour because I was like, I need to like not get big from these weights I just lifted. I'm like, I didn't know much back then. But yeah, so I think, I think me and my sisters were so close, but we all have very different journeys in fitness. And I think like meeting someone like Molly was just really powerful.
She's jacked too.
Yeah, she is. And now she's jacked mom, which is like even more badass. So I think it was cool just to be able to relate with another female about that stuff. So,
earlier you were mentioning that you were talking with your coach and you had to figure out exactly why it was you were doing everything you're doing right now to really push through. So why? I don't know if that's too personal to ask or something.
No.
Yeah.
So for me, I love competing. I love CrossFit, and I love working hard to reach my fullest potential. And I think realizing like that's why I'm doing it is to be the best I can, as corny as that sounds, but to let go of the placement, what you qualify for, how much you lift and all that stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I'm very competitive and I love winning. And that's part of the reason why I work really hard, because if you don't work hard, you don't get to beat other people who work really hard. And I think I just, for me, like moving into next year's games, like my goal, now they impose these cuts throughout the weekend. And so the final cut goes to 10. And, that was my goal this year. I would say top 20, top 10, like top 15 was what I was kind of thinking. And going into next year, I want to be top 10, but not because I get to say, oh, I'm one of the top 10 fittest people in the world, because that's to prove it to myself first and foremost. And so I think just changing the mentality around it has just made it a lot more fulfilling. So
you've done a lot to pursue it. You trained at many different facilities. You trained with Jason Kalipa, and then you've trained with Dave Spitz of Cal Strength. And then you moved, I think you were living in NorCal, right? Yeah, you lived in NorCal, and then you moved to Arizona. So you're trying to fulfill this dream, as it looks like to me, as hard as you can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the biggest reasons of, because when I was here trying to train full time and work full time, and, I just kind of saw the writing on the wall where, I look at the girls that are in the top 10 and, they're putting so much time and dedication into it, 100% of themselves. And I was like, okay, I'm kidding myself if I think I can put in 60, 70% of the time and energy they are and be able to hang with them or beat them. And so that's why, this Arizona opportunity to train at OPEX was so amazing, because I feel like I finally got to put all the chips on the table and not be like, well, I wish I could have this time to also do that and have the time to recover, not just train. And that's also very, very gratifying in and of itself, is that there's nothing, I feel like everything that I have in my control, I'm doing. And before I didn't feel that way. So
Can you tell us
Yeah.
more? Because we were talking a little bit before we got on the podcast about the Arizona thing.
Mhm.
That is first off dope. Can you explain that and how that all happened for you?
Yeah, so OPEX, so Big Dogs is the remote coaching side of OPEX, so it kind of all falls under the OPEX umbrella. And Big Dogs athletes started a sponsorship athlete program a few years ago where they're essentially, sponsoring athletes, paying them to train full time. Which is so incredible because a lot of times, especially in CrossFit right now, it's still a new sport. It's hard to make a living just competing. And so a lot of CrossFit athletes have to try to fit in a full-time job with training, which is just really stressful. And you can still get in the training you need, but you don't get in the time to recover and all that other stuff. So this was an incredible opportunity. After I went team in 2017, I was looking for a new coach, and actually
By the way, when you say went team, what does that mean exactly?
Oh, sorry. Team to the CrossFit Games.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of my teammates, Chris, he knew I was looking for a coach, and he said, OPEX, I've been working with them for a while. They seem awesome. And I had kind of heard of OPEX a little bit, and I took a call with one of their coaches, and I was like, this seems like a great deal, but wasn't trying to leave California. I was like, I'll just have a remote coach. It's fine. And they were like, if you really want to go like 100% into this, like you should move out here. I was like, no, like I can't do that. And I was talking to my parents, and my dad was like, you want to do this, like, why wouldn't you? And I was like, you're right. And so like 2-3 weeks later, I think like a week later, I flew out to Arizona just to see the lay of the land, see if it would be a good fit. And then I think it was like another 2 weeks later, like my dad flew out to California. We packed everything in U-Haul and then just drove out to Arizona, and the rest was history. So yeah.
That's awesome. And your parents are super supportive of, have they always been supportive? You were a swimmer for a long time and stuff. Have they always been, at the swim meets and all that stuff? I mean, swim meets are brutal to go to because they last forever.
I joke. I was like, I tell my parents, I'm like, good thing like I wasn't, like a mile swimmer, like a long distance, and you'd have to watch that. But no, they've always been so supportive. I mean, especially with swimming, waking up at like 4 a.m. every morning to drive me to swim practice. And especially when I was complaining about going and they're the ones having to drive me. But yeah,
do I really have to go? I was like, yeah, we woke up at 3 a.m. to bring you. You're fucking going.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they've been great. And, this has been like a crazy ride, this CrossFit career thus far. And they've been super supportive. It was so cool to have them there at the CrossFit Games this year because that was my first time individually going. And like that's the thing is like I first and foremost do this for me, but to be able to share it with the people that have also invested so much time, energy into it with you, is huge. Like it might sound kind of silly, but for me, I was so excited, because if you make it to the CrossFit Games, you get all the cool gear with your last name on it. And not that that's what it's all about, but I was like,
it's exciting though.
Yeah.
That's cool. Makes you feel special. I mean, you're part of an elite group for sure.
Yeah. And I was like, I can't wait to gift one of those shirts to my parents to be like, we did it. Like we finally got there. And so that's what I like for Christmas. I put it in a little frame and like gave it to them. And it just symbolizes a lot and like all of like the shit we went through with all of it. So it's I definitely wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Well, that's really cool because it's symbolic of the whole family's kind of invested in it.
100%.
And then obviously they were involved in your athletics when you were young, but it all has an impact, you know, and even just little things like having a social media following and just, you being on your phone versus like, just taking a minute to talk to them and all these kinds of things. And it's all stuff that maybe people aren't as conscious of as they should be. There's a lot of decisions and things where I'm thinking about, oh man, I kind of should do that. And I'm like, I kind of can't, like there's too many things that, there's too many other people involved, my kids are involved, my wife's involved. And I'm like, that just kind of pulls away from from that too much, and it
Mhm.
doesn't make sense for me, to kind of go in on that. So that's great that you recognize that it's a big team effort.
Yeah.
That's
No,
im-
absolutely.
That's important.
Yeah.
when it comes to like the shit you went through, like you mentioned, there's a lot of CrossFitters that are going to listen to this because you are Colleen Fotsch, and they're probably wondering, I feel like I have potential, I have talent.
hmm
What kind of things should they look out for? Things they should avoid, and how should they like build themselves up into the caliber of athlete that you are?
I think the biggest thing is finding a great coach. I think that is, and one who not only gives you a great training program, but that also can guide you in the nutrition, the recovering, all that stuff. I think that's such a major, and if you are able to have a coach that you can see on a regular basis, I know not everyone needs that, but for me personally, I think just to be able to get immediate feedback.
You said for you that was a big difference because you've had
Yeah.
coaching before remotely,
hmm
and then it changed everything once you had somebody there, huh?
Yeah, I think especially training for the games and stuff, it takes a very not only physical toll on your body, but also mentally. And I've told Sam this before, but it's cool because him being there, just I never feel like I'm going through it alone, which is awesome. Because I mean, my family, my friends, like they're so supportive and they get what I'm going through, but like he's the only other one that like really sees it, like day in, day out, like great days, days that I'm just crying, like all of the shit in between. So it's nice to have to really trust someone with that. And yeah, so that's been an absolute game changer. I think too, just finding ways to make it fun. And I think for me, that's finding other people to do workouts with. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to find like, always someone who's better than you or the best person out there. It's just having someone next to you also doing something similar sometimes is just enough, you know? Um, yeah, and just like fun competition. I mean, that's what got me into CrossFit was I hated working out alone. I loved feeling like I was on a team kind of. I also liked beating people, in most CrossFit gyms, you go in, there's one workout of the day and all the classes, you write your name and your time and I'd go in the afternoon and be like, okay, who has the fastest time? I'm going to beat them. But yeah, so I'd say finding a good coach, having fun with it, getting competition experience is huge because you can train and train and train in your own gym, but like, sports don't happen in a vacuum and they're not always perfect. So just getting out there, even though it's scary and intimidating, but it's such a great way to learn and to know what you need to work on. Sometimes you don't even realize you need to work on those things. So yeah.
Does your coach assist with working on kind of the mental game, the mental side of things, or do you have a separate coach for that, or how does that work?
So I like to say Sam, especially over the last few months, has become somewhat like my therapist, I would say. Because I think that while the gym for me sometimes is my therapy, if I don't deal with, the shits that's going on in my head or like kind of weighing me down, it's going to show up in training and in competition. So Sam is really good about like, even if it means like we're going to miss a session, like he's like, no, we're going to talk about whatever you need to like get off your chest right now because you're not going to be able to train the way you need to train today, like until you move past this. So that's been huge. So he's really helped me improve on being a better athlete by also improving me just as an overall person.
So that would take a lot of like openness on your end to go to
Yeah.
him and say, hey, like here's what's bugging me. And then does he, when you give him that information, does he help to deflect it basically? Like saying, hey, like, no, like you're way off. You're totally fine. This is going to work out this way. Or does he, kind of just maybe steer you in a different direction? How does he kind of handle some of that?
I think a lot of it is just talking through it. I mean, if I need to be kind of just like switch my thinking or perspective about something, he helps with that too. I think it's definitely something like our trust that we have, like has been built over time. It wasn't on like day one. I'm like, hey, I have to tell you all my deepest, darkest secrets right now. But I think I just realized that by him, you know, if something is bothering me, it's better that he knows it. So then I know that he knows what I'm going through, and not to give me like an out if I'm having like a bad day or something, but it's, you know, if I don't communicate to him that there's just other shit going on in my life, and all of a sudden he's seeing me, you know, way underperform, he's going to be like, Colleen, what the hell, you know? And so it's good for me to communicate that versus him just being like, is she just giving up? Like, what is she doing? So yeah, I think that's just a crucial part of our coach athlete relationship.
I know that this may sound too general. I'm not even sure how this is going to go, but you know, when a lot of athletes, their internal dialogue sometimes can be very negative in general. Like, oh, I can't do that, or shit, that's just, I don't think I'll be able to handle that, or this competition, fuck, I might lose, blah, blah, blah. But you've been an athlete for a long time. Has your internal dialogue always been positive, get at it, competitive, or was there ever a switch in terms of the way you talk to yourself and your confidence level?
It's definitely not always been positive.
Right.
I think for me, in CrossFit specifically, it's definitely something that I have to continue to work on. I think there are certain moments where I feel invincible and there's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to crush whatever is ahead of me. I think I'm always in somewhat, especially with competing, always in a competitive mindset, but I would be lying if I said there weren't moments or specific events where I start to go through what could go wrong versus what could go really well. And that's something that Sam and I have been really working on in training first, because I feel like, you know, you got to work on it there because it's not just going to magically show up in a competition. So for me, like in training, when, you know, I have a game plan and it all just goes to shit, and, you know, we talk about afterwards, he's like, okay, like, what'd you start telling yourself then? And he's like, okay, well, next time, like, we got to shift that. Like, you can't just be, because if I still have, you know, 10 minutes in a workout and all I'm thinking is, well, you really fucked that up. Like, and then you're just surviving your way through versus like, okay, like I messed up that rep, but like, here's what I can focus on for the next one. And then making that a positive instead of just dwelling on what's going wrong.
There's a lot of things too that can happen within a workout. You guys move around so much, and a lot of the things are timed. I mean, you could potentially just, I don't know, like hit your finger on a weight. You know, it could be something like kind of small, you know, but it hurts.
Right.
And you're like, fuck. Yeah, or maybe you're doing, you know, kipping pull-ups or something like that, and your hands start to really wear out, and they're just worn down. And the CrossFit Games is crazy because it's like over the span of like 5 days, and it's like 4 days of like nonstop activity. It seems like. So I don't even know how anyone's hands or feet like would survive any of that, much less your body, right?
Yeah.
The rest of your body. So how do you switch the dialogue, you know, to, you know, kind of negative talk of like, oh my God, like I tripped on that bar, smashed my shin, and then how do you kind of get back? Do you try to talk to yourself about like technique and breathing? Do you kind of hone in on just something different so that way your mind's not really wandering and panicking?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think it's just picking something to focus on that you're about to do, whether it's like, okay, checking in with my breathing or, you know, getting to the next rep, whatever it is, just so I'm not dwelling on what just happened. And I think, like for me, you know, a more positive mindset is more about that versus I know I can't, like, it would be disingenuous of me to go into a competition and be like, it's going to be so fun and it's going to feel so great. And like, it's going to really hurt. And I'm going to have to dig super deep to, you know, beat these girls and stuff. But I think for me, just focusing on the moment and what I'm about to do versus getting too much in my head about this hurts or that didn't feel great or like my legs are sore from the last workout, stuff like that. So just really focusing on the present moment and what I'm about to do.
I'd imagine like you're all in it, you know, so like you show up and you're like, fuck, my hamstrings are super sore and we got to run, or my calves are super sore. It's like, well, that person next to you was here yesterday too.
Right.
Like they were doing it. Like,
100%.
so you really don't have a legitimate, you don't have a
No.
legitimate excuse. It's tough though, because you like want someone to empathize with you. You want
Mhm.
someone to be like, hey, you know what? I know that your legs are pretty short. Why don't you start out about 10 yards ahead of me?
Right.
And no one's ever gonna do that to you. Right?
Oh, that'd be kind of nice sometimes.
That'd be nice, yeah.
That'd be really nice.
You know, you guys were mentioning earlier how like you sometimes have 2 to 3 workouts a day.
Mhm.
And later on, I really want us to touch on how you go about all of your recovery processes, because you just do so much work.
Mhm.
But on those days where you're doing like 3 workouts, what's that structure like? Like, is it like a lift earlier in the day and a type of conditioning session? And I don't know what the hell else you would do.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so usually right now my mornings are fairly aerobic. So whether it's a bunch of running intervals, lately have been doing some running with a heavy backpack, which is always fun. Yeah, so
How
that
heavy
or
is the backpack?
20 pounds.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So at the games, not to sidetrack too much, but at the games we had an event where we started with 20 pounds and we had to run a 1.5K lap. And every time we came back on a lap, we had to add 10 more pounds into the bag.
Damn.
And it ended with 50 pounds. And it's probably one of the worst events I've ever done. It took so much all the willpower I had to not walk. I might have been
God.
faster walking at that
Yeah.
point, but it was brutal.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But yeah, so my mornings are usually pretty aerobic for the most part, whether it's like, usually it's like running, rowing, biking, something like that. Noon session might be more geared around lifting, but not always in the traditional sense. Like the other day I did some snatching intervals where like I'm doing 1 or 2 snatches every 90 seconds or something. And then we'll go into, yeah, that was it. So fun. And then we'll do, like the other day we did front squats paired with, I had to get a 150-pound sandbag over the yoke, like going back and forth between that. And then the third session might be more geared towards gymnastics or something, but like in a Metcon form. So maybe like parallel handstand push-ups with running or with squat cleans, but it's all for time. So
I like how she's mixing stuff, like blending stuff together that I can't do either one of them. And I'm just thinking, okay, I'm out. I can't do that one. I'm like, okay, I can't do that one either. Okay, I can't do that one either. Fuck, all right, well, I'll just watch.
yeah.
I'll hold your camera for you.
Yeah, perfect.
But like, it seems that CrossFit has also, I don't know if I'm right, I could be totally wrong, but it seems that they've been like implementing more strongman type movements too. Like, is that
Yeah,
stuff
adding some-
newer,
Yeah.
or has that been a part of it for a long time?
I think it's fair. It's always been a part of it in some way, shape, or form. I think it was in 2017. They did a really cool workout. I think it was called Strongman Sphere, and it was yoke carry, sled drag, and heavy farmer carries, but also paired with a ton of handstand walking. So yeah, I know. But yeah, so it was really interesting, but it was a cool event. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that
there's
sounds brutal.
yeah,
hell, man?
yeah.
It sounded all cool for a second. I'm like, ooh,
Right.
yeah, handstand walking. Like,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah.
Aren't there, like, I'd imagine, aren't there athletes that just can't handstand walk? Or can every athlete get to a point where they can handstand walk?
If you're at the
I
games,
think-
you have to.
Well,
Yeah, at the
yeah,
games you
yeah.
should be able to handstand walk. I mean, they've actually started implementing handstand walking into the CrossFit Open, but they'll usually put it a little further into the workout, so people who maybe aren't there yet can still do at least part of the workout, and then when they get there, it's just like practice time.
I actually like really like and admire some of the stuff they do in CrossFit, because like, and I've been saying this about strongman for a long time. You know, I've had friends die over strongman, you know, because they've gotten so big
Yeah.
because of the demand, and it's their own choice. They don't have to, you know, no one's making them do that.
Mhm.
But you know, the way that the events are set up, you have to be like really, really large in order to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that they should implement a handstand walks, but they should implement something that requires a little bit higher fitness level here and there, so that the athlete can be a little bit slimmer, maybe pull off. I know people love those big weights. I know they do. I love them too. But man, I it's like no one really cares about, whether these guys are going to live to see 50 or 60 years old. And I think that's super unfortunate. What I like about CrossFit is that the fact that it's like, okay, great job with that deadlift. Okay, let's see you like run a mile, or let's see you like, okay, you can run a mile. Let's see you run a mile with 50 pounds on your back, and they're going to catch you somewhere. You're going to stink and just absolutely suck at something. Like there's just no one's perfect at it. Do you think that Rich Froning is kind of the driving force behind some of these, like, workout 7,000 times a day type of thing? Because he kind of set the tone, winning 4 championships. And I know the females have also been repetitive with their championships as well. Has this been driven by some CrossFit Games champions? Did they kind of like lay out maybe a blueprint of what the training's supposed to look like, you think?
I think a little bit. I think Rich Froning was, probably one of the first people just to do that much high volume training.
People said that he works out, like they turn around and he's working out again.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, to compete a full weekend at the CrossFit Games, you have to build up that volume. Like for me, being able to handle 3 sessions a day was definitely a process. It wasn't just like overnight, like, okay, you're just doing all of these sessions. But I do think also so I think you do need a certain amount of volume built up to compete at the CrossFit Games. And a lot of these sanctional events now are almost very similar to a CrossFit Games, maybe like one day less. But I do think also from person to person, some people handle the high volume training really well and some people don't. I think from what I can tell, I think I'm kind of in the middle. I think I definitely have to regulate it and not get too carried away. But luckily I don't have to worry about that too much because Sam is in control of all the programming. I definitely keep him in the loop with how like I'm feeling body wise and stuff. But you kind of have to be ready for that total beatdown when you get to some of these competitions. And just be ready to go, really hard 3-4 times a day. So I think that's a big reason why he was able to be so dominant, while he was an individual and still with his team. They're crushing it. Yeah. And I think a lot of that was, on the, 3rd, 4th day, whenever everyone else is kind of pittering out. It's like, he's like, no problem. Like I do this all the time. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people have focused on is like training for that 3rd and 4th day, like that final grind when everyone's feeling like shit. Because we can all feel great on the 1st and 2nd day. Like you're not that sore, like you're amped up, but it's like, that last day when you just honestly you're ready to go home and like I'm not sleeping and like I'm tired and sore and all this stuff. But so I definitely think that he kind of laid that out for, just super dominant in the sport for sure.
Well, we can go back to this then. What are during the games, what do you do in between days to recover? Because I'm assuming the things that you do in between the days of the games to recover, very similar to what you do in your training to recover, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that look like so athletes can like take that and use it for their own benefit?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is that I'm eating enough, and especially when I'm at a competition, eating very similar to what I would be, if not the exact same thing as what I normally eat. Like you're not trying to implement anything new or crazy. Just like, just not a good idea.
You don't want your stomach to blow up. Like I'm sure that you're probably craving stuff because you're, it's an emotional thing. And if you do really good in an event, maybe you want some like candy or something, but it would be a horrible idea, right?
Right. Yeah. So just staying up on the nutrition, not adding anything new, staying hydrated. For me, at the end of a competition day, I really like using like my Normatec stuff just for blood flow.
That's blowing up your legs with a bunch of air and getting the blood flow to kind of circulate a lot easier than normal.
Normatec? Yeah. What is that?
They're like essentially like these giant boots that you put on and plug into.
It's like inflatable pants.
Yeah.
Like very like Michelin Man.
It feels really good though.
It does.
The
it
pressure
feels awesome.
really good.
Wow.
Yeah. So especially if I'm at a competition where I don't have access to someone for like a massage or like cool down type that thing. I'll travel with those. I think also cooling down after your events and stuff is really helpful, so you don't feel as shitty moving into the next one. When I am home, I see a PT once a week for body work. There's an awesome recovery place near my house now called Balanced, and they have Normatex, and then they also have a sauna, hot tub, cold tub, like the whole nine. So that's really nice. Obviously, I don't really have access to all that while I'm at a competition. But yeah, and then just it's hard because sleep is huge for recovery, and so especially when I'm training as hard as I am, trying to be very consistent with that, like going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. I'd say in competitions it's a lot harder to do. Like for me, I don't sleep great during competitions just because
anxiety thing.
Yeah, just nerves.
Yeah.
Like I'll end up usually waking up a little earlier than I'd like to. And I think too, sometimes these competitions, they run pretty late in the day. So if you're getting done at like 8 or 9 p.m. and after that high and like that adrenaline, pump, like you need a few hours before you're like ready to actually sleep.
You sometimes get super frustrated because like there's not enough hours in the day to like get it all done. Sometimes like you're
sure.
coming home and you're done with your third workout, and then you kind of realize you're kind of low on food, and you're like, I still got to stop by the store, and I still got to. I mean, it's great, you try to always be ahead the best you can. I'm sure you have some meal prep companies sending you some stuff, but it's all very tough to keep up with. How many times a day are you eating?
So when I wake up in the morning, I have like a little bit of food because I hate training on an empty stomach, but I hate feeling full. So it's like trying to find the happy medium between the two. So I'll eat before my first session, and then after my first session, I have like a real meal, like a full breakfast. And then I'll have maybe like a little snack before my second session. And then after that session, I essentially have like, I call it like 2 dinners essentially. Try to space them out a little bit, and then maybe like one more snack, and then there's shakes and stuff in there. But especially that was one of the hardest parts transitioning into 3-a-days was I was like, when do I eat? Because I'd be hungry after a session, but I'm like, I have to go back to the gym in an hour, and I'm gonna throw up if I eat all this stuff right now. So that was definitely there was a learning curve there for sure, just figuring out, because I was like, I can't just eat all of my calories at the end of the day, otherwise it just didn't work for me and I'd just be too hungry throughout the day. So that was really tough to try and figure out how to get all of my calories in while I was training that much.
What are some of your staple foods in terms, because like you eat a lot of carbs, so what are like some of your staple carbs to be able to get in that amount?
Oatmeal every day. I look forward to my oatmeal every single day. I have
something in it.
Yeah, so I do oatmeal with cinnamon, and then I do blueberries, bananas, almond butter or cashew butter, and honey. And that's like,
that sounds good.
I would eat it like a few times a day, but that'd be too much fat, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, I was gonna ask, where are your fats at again?
80
Okay.
grams.
Okay. So I'm just thinking, because like I've been wanting like a lot of the like peanut butters and stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, that's gonna take like all of my fats. So I was curious. Okay.
Yeah.
So do your nut butters like have less overall fat per serving? Are they
just natural?
They're just regular. Like
Cool.
I tried like the
powdered
PB2 and stuff.
That's what I've
and
been messing with, and it's not as satisfying. It gets the flavor, but it doesn't have the weight.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In smoothies, it's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Protein shakes for sure too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peanut butter's tough for everybody, I think. Bodybuilders really struggle with it. Like a lot of prep, like physique and fitness chicks and stuff, they always talk about peanut butter.
That was one of my binge foods in the past. When I had an anxious day during my bodybuilding prep, I ate a full tub of peanut butter.
Oh my
god.
I
had
That's amazing. That's incredible.
I don't even buy stuff like that. I'll just devour that. It just has no chance.
I asked Nsima, like when he was helping me out during my cut, I'm like, hey, is it cool if I have just like a little spoonful here or there? He's like, you can, but be careful. I'm like, what do you mean? And then sure enough, I'm like, oh shit, okay, I get
It's
it
like
now.
the floodgates have opened.
Yeah.
You're like, hang on, what would happen if I put a little bit of honey on this peanut butter? And then you never even get out of your pantry. You just keep spooning it in. You don't even like sit down in front of the TV and enjoy it or nothing. You're just like an animal. You're just sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
God.
Throw that on some crackers and it's a party.
Actually, on that note,
Yeah.
I mean, you get some fun food in. Do you have any trigger foods that you're just like, fuck it, I'm not gonna have that in my pantry?
Probably chips. It's just
That crunch.
yeah, it's so bad. Like tortilla chips.
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's just I can't. And every now and again, like I'll get them, and then it's like sometimes I just have to throw the rest away. And I know that's horrible, but like, I mean, sometimes I'm good about like with the cookies that I make. People are like, "Well, can't you just?" Because I always give them away. They're like, "Well, can't you just put them in the freezer and like go back to them like when you can have a cookie again?" I'm like, but I know they're there. Like it's so I'm like, it's not like there's a lock on the door. Like I'm still gonna go get them.
You know what would be a
But-
great idea? Sorry, but
No.
if there was like a fridge, right, and it had a thing you set up where you're like cannot open until like tomorrow at 12.
Oh, I bet there is.
And no matter what you do, there's no
Yeah.
codes, no nothing. You cannot open that
Yeah.
fridge. That'd be so
Could
awesome.
figure out a way, but
like a little lockbox.
Yeah.
Just for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to have my fiance make you some salsa then, because that was my
Oh.
go-to for everything.
Yeah.
It's so good. But yeah, the chips, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. So then what else are you eating? Because we have like I'm more of a high-carb, low-fat guy.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
So as weird as it sounds, the meal that I found works best for me early in the morning before my first session is toast with strawberry jam. It's like so random. Either that or if I want something even lighter, baby food.
Oh.
As traditional as it
That's
is.
a lot of bodybuilders used to use that in the past.
Yeah.
Digest super fast.
Right. Yeah. There's a banana pumpkin one that tastes like a little mini smoothie, and it's so good. But
I might have to look into that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they're really good. And then with my oatmeal, I usually do turkey bacon, maybe egg whites, possibly. And then my meals after my next session. So I use Trifecta, and they send pretty much all the food that I need throughout the week, which is awesome. But my meals usually look like I just have a protein, a vegetable, and then a carb. And the carb's usually white rice for my first meal after my second training session. And then my second dinner is usually maybe like I love Japanese sweet potatoes. And so
Yeah, those are my fave too. I love those things.
yeah, those are, I can't go back to regular sweet potatoes anymore. So I'll usually have that and then like another vegetable and then a protein. So
I feel like it's with your diet, since you're low fat. I mean, I know you have the guys that send you meals, but you'd love Piedmontese, their steaks, because they're super low fat. Like the New York steaks have like 90 grams of protein and I think like 8 grams of fat.
That's the flat iron.
Flat
Really?
irons,
That's the
flat irons.
iron. Yeah.
It's like
It's the type of cattle that they have.
Oh,
The
interesting.
the cows are jacked,
Nice.
but the meat is still
Yeah.
tender, so it's still really good. It's not like you think it would be like a hockey puck.
Right,
it's gonna
right.
be like super lean like that. But it gives you just a different option.
That's
A
so
lot of
nice.
people have to switch to chicken when they're limited on their fat.
Mhm.
And then chicken just ain't got much in it.
it's
It
a
just
weak
has-
bird.
Yeah, it's a weak bird. Just has protein in it.
Yeah. But the Piedmontese stuff, it again, like Mark said, it looks like it wouldn't taste very good because even when you look at it, there's no marbling or anything on it.
Yeah.
But it's super tender and it I don't know exactly how they do it, but it's incredible. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And while we're at it, Piedmontese.com. That's
Oh.
PIEDMONTESE.com. Enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping on that. Earlier when we were talking about like how when you started swimming growing up, and then I talked about like my daughter and how like we want to get her into something.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think like parents can go about getting their kid into more like fitness related activities? Because I know your family was like they were surrounded by it all the time, but maybe
Yeah.
somebody who's not, or like mine, she's 11 now, and I know she wants to play baseball, which is pretty cool. We're trying to get her into jujitsu. Jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu.
So I don't know. Do you have any tips for like parents, like in my situation where we want to like maybe even do swimming, like we were talking about? Like, I don't know. I don't want to push too hard, but I want to push enough.
Yeah, I think it's just really allowing. I know for me personally, like I love that my parents let me try whatever sport I wanted. And I think that really helped me not get burned out of swimming. Because I think swimming, especially because you can start so young. And I think over the years, people start younger and younger and, feel like they have to get their kid swimming twice a day when they're, 7 years old. Otherwise, they're not going to be successful in it. And I think there's so much power in letting your kid just explore other sports and like develop other skills. And it's just also more fun, you get to meet more people. And so I know I was very fortunate that my parents just kind of let me do whatever. And then around like high school time, they're like, okay, you gotta kind of hone in on one. But yeah, I think just letting kids have fun. I think it's hard too, because a lot of times now I think, a lot of programs, like especially swimming programs, the coaches, the other kids' parents are just so into it. And it's hard to, because if you're having a kid who just wants to do it for fun, but then, they're the slowest one in the pool, they're like, well, this kind of sucks now. And so I think coaches too, it's important for, especially coaches that are coaching kids, just to remember that they're still kids, let them be kids. So I think just being able to play lots of sports, whatever that is so powerful.
Yeah, just letting them kind of find their way.
Yeah, and I think I do believe though in like, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I know that if given the option, I probably would have quit swimming at some point if it weren't for my parents. So I do think there's also power in, as a parent, being able to show your kid that like you can't just give up on it, like we talked about, like seeing something through, and knowing that it's not always going to be, it should be fun, but it's not always going to be fun. And that's just a good learning experience for anything you're doing. And so I do think that kids should be able to try a bunch of sports, but not to the point where they're like every week they're like, well, I missed a goal in soccer, so I'm going to quit. I'm going to move on to tennis now, and like, over and over again. So I think there's a fine balance between it. Yeah.
Yeah. We were, 'cause me and Colleen were talking as we were doing a photo shoot, which, she's super jacked. It was funny because I was like, oh, okay, exhale, so that way you can show the abs. And then I look at a previous photo where she wasn't even doing anything. And I'm like, oh, you're still ripped. Okay, cool. So on that note, have you ever thought about like training specifically for aesthetics and then doing like, I don't want to say a full on bodybuilding show, but like maybe prepping for like a big photo shoot?
That could be a little more up my alley. Mark and I were talking about this earlier. I think like training for aesthetics like would be fun, like to train for a show, but I think where I would just kind of fall off the dieting and then like the show itself, I don't think I have it in me to get up there in heels in a really tiny swimsuit. And it's
kind of bizarre, it's like you gotta trade in your training shoes, for your Olympic lifting shoes for a pair of high heels. Kind of weird. I don't know whoever decided on that, but it is strange.
And be orange.
Yeah, don't forget the tan.
But yeah, I think the dieting itself alone would be really, really hard for me.
It's really hard.
Oh, on that note of like you were mentioning having kids try a lot of sports. If there are any parents listening, there's a book called Range, and the guy who actually suggested it, John Berardi, suggested that book, and I went through it, and it was really interesting because the book talks about a lot of different athletes, but mainly Roger Federer. He didn't play tennis since he was a kid. He started at like 17 or some shit.
Yeah.
But he had so many different sports that gave him a range of different athletic abilities that when he came into tennis, it took him a little bit to pick it up, but he picked it up, and then he's legit a world champion. There are so many other athletes that are similar to that vein. A lot of times when a kid starts a certain sport when they're super young, it pigeonholes their development athletically, and they just end up not having a range of ability. So
Yeah.
what you said is like so damn important. Parents should let their kids have options.
Mm-hmm.
And during all this, you're working on getting your master's.
Whew.
Yeah. Never thought I would ever be doing it. Like growing up, school was not my thing ever. Especially through high school and college. I felt like I was always just surviving through school. I think school was always something that I just didn't pick it up as quickly. Like for example, my brother, who's the second oldest in our family, he's super smart. And not that he doesn't work hard by any means, but like he in high school could study for a test for 10 minutes and just get straight A's. And I'm like, I'll study for hours, I guess, C. And I'm like, what is going on?
Damn.
And especially with balancing swimming and school, especially in college, I just felt like I was drowning, for lack of a better word, in school. And like me looking back on my undergrad, I feel like I majored in swimming more than I majored in anything else, because that was the goal, was to win national titles. And they promote like, being a student is important, but it was just I don't know. I just didn't feel like I could devote the time and energy into school. And I also didn't enjoy it, honestly. I didn't really enjoy what I was learning about all the time. And I just had more fun competing and training and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, school is just something I need to do so I can continue to keep swimming. And because of that, I kind of developed this mentality of like, I just suck at school and I'm stupid or dumb. And when my dad and I were talking, we had a lot of conversations about me possibly going back to school to get my master's, and a lot of like very heated emotional conversations. And I just flat out said, I was like, I don't think I can do it because I'm dumb. Like, I just don't think. And he was like, that's ridiculous. Like, why wouldn't you at least try? And so even when I got accepted into the master's program, I still was so anxious about it, was not really looking forward to it, to be honest. I liked the idea of it, but I was like, I just don't know if I can. Well, my biggest concern was I don't know if I can compete and perform the way I want to in CrossFit and also be going to school, because I was like, I've tried this before, being this student athlete, and it didn't turn out too good. It turned out great on the athletic side, but I mean, in high school and college, like, I'm maybe getting B's, a lot of C's in college. And so, just saw myself as I was a very average student, and kind of like identified with being a very average student. And so my first class into this program, I just was really bad with time management. The class started the weekend of regionals that year, so I just was not concerned about school. I was like, I'm trying to compete and go to the games. And I got a C in that class. And I was just like, see, here we go. Like, again, I can't do this. And after a lot of just more reflecting, I was like, okay, like, were you really giving it 100%, what you can do? And so I just got a lot better with time management, creating my own deadlines to never feel overwhelmed by either, because I didn't want the school to affect me competing in CrossFit, because I'm like, I only have so many years I can do this, so I need to do this now. And then it's been really awesome, because since that first class, I've gotten A's in the rest of my classes. And which is, if I get anything out of this master's program, like, I'm just so happy that I feel like I've overcome this very, not to be dramatic, but like lifelong feeling of that I'm just not intelligent enough to be good at school. And that's been so rewarding for me.
There's an exercise that teachers have done where they'll say, in the beginning of the year, they'll say, what grade do you want to get? And the kid will be like, huh? And like, well, if you could just pick any grade that you want, what grade do you want to get? And the kid will be like, well, an A. And the teacher's like, well, it's up to you to get, you can get an A. Like, like, it's available to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, we're starting out with, 0 for now, and you can work your way towards it. And then they kind of walk you through, like, what would it look like if you were an A student? You know, and then you can kind of pick. You can sort of pick like where you land.
Mm-hmm.
I even had done this with my own son at times. I've talked to him about it and said, you know, what grade would you like? And he's obviously said an A. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, so that sounds like you care about school, because
Mhm.
otherwise he would have said an F. And
Right,
I'm out of here. I don't give a shit, you know?
Yeah.
And then I said, well, okay, what if having an A meant that you couldn't do some of the other things that you really enjoyed doing? What if you had to spend less time with your friends and
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't do a couple other things that you like doing? And he was like, yeah, I wouldn't really want the A. And I'm like, well, how about you get to spend time with your friends? You get to put in a good effort in school, but you're not crazy about
Mhm.
school, and you end up with a B. He's
Mhm.
like, that sounds good. I'm like, all right, fucking get a B, do your homework.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go. You know, and I think that, you know, what you give is what you get. You
Mhm.
know, it's a very simple concept to understand, and I think sometimes somebody will, you know, they'll be upset because they have a problem or they have a disability. It could be a learning disability. It could be they were born with without 5 toes or something like that, and you have a tendency to try to utilize that crutch all the time and
Yeah.
you just walk around with that all the time, and you think,
Mhm.
oh, it's not going to be a big deal, no one's going to notice or no one's going to care, I'll just blend in some other way and I'll be
Mhm.
good at other shit, and it won't ever matter. But it always matters, because you
Mhm.
know that you hear the saying too, is that, you know, the way you do anything is the way that you do everything. And if you kind of start to think about, okay, like, I really kick ass over here, how do I take at least some of that
Right.
and just not suck
Mhm.
so bad over in this
Yeah.
area?
Yep.
I can probably do a little, like, if I'm just being honest, you know. And I
Mhm.
think that's great that you did that. That's hard to do. It's
Mhm.
hard because you know, we do have this internal dialogue. You do tell yourself stuff over
Mhm.
like a long period of time, and then to try to break it, that's fucking awesome that you're able to do that. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think a lot of it, like you said, is I feel like now neither of them are taking away from each other. They're almost like building upon each other, and I feel more confident in both because of both, which is really cool.
Yeah, and if you
yeah.
stop being a baby about it and realize that people have done harder shit, right?
100%.
They have, right?
Yeah.
Like, people raised 4 kids or 5 kids and gone to school at the same
Yeah.
time and had a job,
Right.
you know? So you have to, sometimes you got to be like, I'm all right. I'm being a wimp.
No,
You know,
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That's awesome.
Mark mentioned like taking stuff from your athletics and applying it to whatever else it is you're doing. So, you know, you were mentioning that you and your coach had to figure out exactly why you were doing what you were doing to push
Mhm.
you forward. What was it with school that made the switch? Were you trying to figure out why? Was it that you changed your major or something? Like, what gave you that switch from going from doing C's to A's? Was it just the organization, or was there something specific?
I think it was mostly the organization,
Okay.
like just being more proactive with my time instead of sitting there making myself anxious and overwhelmed about all these things I had to do instead of actually going to do any of it. And I think, you know, because I think we can all
Man,
like
that's super powerful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that have a lot of anxiety, and it's just kind of over the stuff that they're not doing,
yeah.
because they're doing the stuff that they shouldn't be doing when they shouldn't be doing it, rather than doing the stuff they should be doing
Mm-hmm.
when they don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is like having those talks with yourself about, okay, do I want to do this thing? Okay, yes. Are my actions aligning with that? If they're not, okay, do I actually want to be doing that? Or am I just saying I want to?
You know how many times I've had to tell myself, nope.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing's lining up
Yeah.
with nothing,
Yeah.
you fucking loser. Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
brutal. But
Yeah.
yeah, you do have to be brutally honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think at some point when you're done with CrossFitting and stuff like that, that you would like to have a family and stuff like that? Like, it sounds like you have a very close-knit family, so it sounds like something the Fotsch family is into, right?
Oh yeah. So I'm the oldest of 6, and yeah.
A lot of kids.
And yeah, so I absolutely 100% want a big family. I don't know about 6, but I want a big family one day.
Once you have
that's
one, you
super-
realize that you need at least 2, but then after you have 2, you're like,
Right.
I'm good.
Yeah.
That's
See,
what happened to me
the-
anyway.
Yeah, my parents were I think at 4, my mom was like, "Okay, cool." And my dad was one of 8. And so he was like, "Come on, let's do more." She's like, "Okay." Like, but I mean, it's so cool. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was crazy, but and still is, but it's cool cuz we're all just really really close. So.
Your parents influenced you a lot and got you and kind of kept you into swimming, and now you're having a positive impact on them and on the rest of the family. You were mentioning your dad to me that he still runs. He started running because your mom was a runner, right? But you said more recently your dad has been paying more attention to his nutrition and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's been really cool. Like my parents have always been very very in shape. Both like my mom did tennis throughout college, has ran so many marathons. So I'm convinced running is in my genes somewhere. I just haven't found it quite yet. But yeah, so they've always been very active and stuff like that. And I think it's been really cool recently, especially my dad being a lot more invested in his nutrition. And I think he's really, connecting the dots between, unfortunately, we've had some family members get sick. And I think, not that he didn't realize it before, but like, he's like, and I mean, I'm happy too, because I'm like, I need you guys to live a long life because I don't want you going anywhere anytime soon. So it's been cool because, and it's just another thing that we get to connect on. I think like it was so cool when both my parents started wanting to lift and stuff and getting a squat rack in the basement and barbells and dumbbells and all that stuff. And now it's fun, getting texts from my dad being like, hey, is this like a good snack idea? Or like, what do you think about this? And so it's just fun. Also like my dad, someone who like I just look up to so much, like asking me for advice. So I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. So it's just awesome to be able to, because I love what I do and I love all this stuff, like, nutrition, living a healthy lifestyle. And it's so cool that, all my family members are really devoted to that too. So, yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
I was really curious about this the whole time, but on this, we have like a rap sheet on you, and it said that you had a really serious shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And like you look at your Instagram, and you're doing all of this stuff that needs shoulder stability, right?
Right.
So first off, what was the injury? How'd you rehab it? And now, like with your shoulder, what do you do anything specific to keep things in line? Like what do you do for your shoulder health?
Yeah. So my shoulder injury was an overuse injury from swimming. So everyone hears that I've had a shoulder injury and they say I do CrossFit and they're like, oh, it must have been CrossFit. And I'm like, no, actually it was. And it's funny because everyone thinks, but swimming's so good for you. There's no impact. I'm like, well, if you do it for years and years and years, sometimes that just builds up. And so I had a torn rotator cuff, had surgery in 2016. It was a much worse comeback, or a lot slower comeback than I thought. I had a lot of people saying like, oh, you'll be back in like 3 months to everything. I was like, oh, that's not that bad. It was not the case at all. And yeah, I fortunately had amazing people helping me with my rehab and stuff. That was crucial. And still to this day, I mean, there's so many people that played such a huge part, but like one of my best friends now, Kevin, who we met because one of my good friends introduced us to help me with my shoulder. And there's no way, I still to this day believe that like if I'd never met him, I don't think I would have competed at the games on a team that year. Like he was great about being aggressive enough, but also very safe with what I was able to do and giving me, just getting my mobility back. I was terrified that I was never going to be able to snatch normally again, to go overhead comfortably again. I mean, especially when you're at a point where you're like, literally can't lift my arm over my head. Like, how on earth am I supposed to get back to snatching 200 pounds? Like, there's no way. And so, yeah, so now more than ever, I'm just so conscious about my warm-ups and not just with my shoulder, but like my knees, my hips, because I'm like, I don't want to go through that again. And Sam's been great with that, just giving me, like, I do a lot of scap work, a lot of like opening up my chest, because I'm generally, especially from swimming, I'm very pulled forward. My external rotation's not the greatest, so I always have to work on that. So just like you said, like making sure all those tinier muscles around my shoulder are doing their job, and so I can stay healthy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're in tremendous shape, and it's like pretty common. Every once in a while, you'll see like a jacked dude, but
Mhm.
it's really rare to see a jacked female. Do you get like a lot of flack for that? Like people, you get weird DMs and, do people say stuff to you in person? If you're walking through the airport and you're in a tank top or something like that?
Yeah, in person, it's usually nice comments. Like, no one's like walking up to me and being like, "You look like a dude." Because I mean, that'd be also like, what if I'm really mad that day? And
Yeah.
like, but no, I wouldn't actually hurt
Super
anyone.
kick him in the
But-
chest.
yeah. No, in person, it's usually like I get asked a lot if I bodybuild. A lot of people may not know what CrossFit is, or they just assume because I look a certain way that I must be training to look that way instead of like training to do something. And then, yeah, I mean, on Instagram, there I get a lot of love more than I get hate, but I do get, especially I feel like it's almost weirder when I get the DMs versus like a comment just saying like, "You look like a man." I'm like, okay, like I just,
Yeah, what a wonderful DM.
yeah,
Great.
like, but it's just for me. I'm like, I, feel bad for that person that's what they choose to do with their time. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, especially like grocery stores, airports. Like, I get some weird looks if I'm not like covered up and stuff. So, but
I wonder what some of that is. I wonder if it's just like some dude who can't gain muscle who's just sitting there,
Oh, the
Could be.
messages.
know,
Yeah.
being weird about it, because it's like, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it might not happen as much in person because, like, I don't know, when you're looking at a picture of you like on your cell phone screen, and then they can like swap over to like, if it's Instagram, like softcore porn or whatever, it's like it's like, oh, she looks a little bit different than what this other like model looks like, and so when they see you in person, I think it's more of like they're taken back because like oh shit, like she's gorgeous, like what is that, like because they're just so blown away. So I think when somebody does say like, oh, you look like a dude, like I feel bad because I feel like maybe they've never seen like what a really good fit person looks like in person.
Yeah.
Because so when they see that online, they're just like, oh, that looks different, like that she looks like a dude. But it's like if somebody saw you in person, they'd just be floored. They're like, what the hell? Like I can't even figure out, like like you're in such good shape that I think in person, like they can't like say anything negative. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So like I just feel bad for the people that do like
Yeah.
talk shit, because it's like, man, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Well, I think it's more messed up when I'll have like other women comment and like tag their friends and be like, "Oh, like I would never want to look like this."
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, first of all, I didn't ask for your opinion. Second of all, like the thing is, like, to me, like, first of all, I'm very proud of what I look like, and it's taken me a long time to get to that space. And also, like, for me, like, the way I look is a representation of all the hard work I put into my training and my sport. And to me, I read that and I'm like, you're acting as if you could just have the choice tomorrow to look, like me or these other amazing CrossFit athletes. And I'm like, it's not. It's like years and years and years.
And I think maybe they make those comments because they think like, see, like if we lift, that's what we're going to look like.
Right. Yeah. I'm
And
like,
it's like,
man,
oh, yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think it was Margot Alvarez. I think she was like, "Yeah, I'll get people that'll compliment me, like, oh, you look great, but I'd never want to have that much muscle." And she's like, "Good luck,
You
Right,
can't.
yeah.
Like,
you can't."
do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
we wouldn't
funny.
be working out all of the time if it happened that easy. But
yeah,
yeah, no, it's crazy.
yeah. Well, how do we convince chicks to lift heavier then?
I think it's more so. I think it's super powerful for women to lift because or for me, like I struggled with going to the gym and not being so fixated on wanting to do certain things in the gym to look a certain way. And so, even if some women are coming into, let's say, a CrossFit gym because they're like, I want to look like whatever it is, their dream body or something. And I think, they get under like heavy weight and all of a sudden they're mind is no longer focused on that. They're just like, I want to lift 100 pounds. And I think that's so powerful. And they start to develop different goals surrounding, lifting and strength. And it actually gives them this internal strength. And I think freedom to not be so fixated on looking a specific way. And also, like, the result of that, like, don't get me wrong. It's like, I got into CrossFit too because I was like, I want to be in shape. I think like it's okay to have like some like vanity and be like, I want to look good. But I think you don't want it to be all consuming. And so I think that's why lifting is just such a great tool, because it gets you out of that mindset a little bit.
Kind of distracts you away from it. And
Yeah.
if you're trying to, let's say, lift 100 pounds, somebody might inform you and say, the real key to lifting 100 pounds isn't just the work that you do in the gym, but it's also the recovery of it.
Right.
And have you looked into trying, any of these diets that people are talking about? Or have you looked into trying to sleep more, or start to get into a pattern, so you can, if you really want to lift 100 pounds, it's just like getting the straight A's, right? It's like we need to have, probably more than one thing align with that.
Right.
And now you're not even really focused on being skinny or being small. You're not depriving yourself. You're not hungry. You still have, you're filling yourself up every day with good nutrients that are going to make you more powerful. And I love what you said about it's kind of building like an internal strength, and like nothing can replace that. And from what I've seen, I've seen so many different women come through powerlifting and then end up with fantastic bodies from powerlifting. And then someone else is like, oh, I didn't think powerlifting would do that. But your body, has so much more to do with your mind and your nutrition. Like those are the key elements right there. The actual training that you do, the actual lifting that you do, it's not as significant. Now, when you start to, end up being built like yourself, or you end up being like built more like a bodybuilder and those kinds of things, then it starts to matter a little bit more on exactly what you're doing, because you're a low percentage of body fat, and it's going to really affect the overall look. But aside from that, nutrition and training is just really not. It's not the highest priority in terms of how you look.
Yeah.
You got any rivals? Like anyone that like you're working out one day and your phone comes out and you're like, fuck, she's doing that.
No, I don't think so. But I do. One of my good friends who we have the same coach, but she lives in New York. It's always we have like competitive or like friendly competitive moments, because we'll do like leading up to Wadapalooza right now. I'm doing some like competition simulations throughout the weekend, and she'll do the same ones as me. And so it's fun to have that little like banter back and forth, just trying to beat each other, even though we're not doing the workout in the same gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think she's actually going to come out to Arizona in the summer, and like we'll train for the games together. So that'd be really cool.
Do you have a favorite in CrossFit?
There's a lot of really awesome people. I think, I feel like this is kind of an easy answer, but I feel like of the elite, I think Tia is such a good representation of what this sport is right now. Because
she's the one who just won, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because not only
she's won twice in a row, or maybe 3 times. I think at least twice.
Yeah, and not only. I like all of my friends within the sport, like I really look up to, and they inspire me day in and day out. But I think for her, not only is she an amazing athlete, but she's just a really good person. I don't know her super well, but when I have met her at competitions, I think it is really easy for, especially when you have that so much success. I think, sometimes it gets to people's heads, or they feel, because they did beat everyone, they start to feel better in everyone. But she is still like so kind, very sweet. Like, she is such a badass. And she's, yeah. So she's an amazing person, someone that I think I competed against her for the first time last year at Wadapalooza, and it was really cool just to share the competition floor with her.
You know what I think is really cool that I just realized as you were talking about Tia? When you look at like the NBA versus the WNBA, the NBA has way more viewers.
Yeah.
Like substantially more viewers. But when you look at women's CrossFit and men's CrossFit, it seems to be, I don't know, but it seems to be like it's neck and neck, that they're both getting equal amounts of attention.
Well, they also go on at the same time.
Yeah.
The CrossFit Games, which is great.
I think that's an amazing thing about that sport, because there seems to be like, I guess, no difference in popularity between both. It's rare.
Oh, for sure. And I think CrossFit, like I was saying, how CrossFit has done a lot for me personally with like body image and all that stuff. I think it's, I think we still have a long ways to go, but I think it's definitely done a great job at promoting that you can be like a beautiful, like, you can be girly, but like also like be into like lifting and all of this like grunt work and stuff, and having that like fun, happy medium between the two.
Yeah, I noticed about once a month on your Instagram, you'll post, I feel like a girl today, and you post a picture of you like in a dress.
Yeah.
You're like, I dressed up finally, and
Right.
I'm not just in my CrossFit workout clothes.
Yeah. Gotta document it because it doesn't happen very often. So.
Oh, man.
There you go. Look at that.
There.
Yeah.
Damn, you're jacked. Like, holy shit.
It's all steroids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't open up that can of worms.
Oh, God.
Well, think about it. She started coming here around 2015. We sell steroids out of the back of
There
this
it is.
place, and we have been for a long time. The shoulder injury, she needed a little bit of something to kind of get her through that. And then all of a sudden, she's like starting to get better and better, and then she's in the CrossFit Games. I mean,
Oh, no. Secrets
steroids
out.
are just flowing around
Yeah.
here like they're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Just breathe them in through the air,
Well, it's been awesome having you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing so many different cool things with us today. What do you have coming up? You mentioned Wadapalooza. That is like basically almost the equivalent of the CrossFit Games. It's that high level of competition, right?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of, they're still like releasing who's competing there, but it's pretty much like a full stack lineup of CrossFit, like veteran CrossFit Games athletes. So that's coming up the 20th of February, so pretty soon.
Anything else coming up on your end? Any travel? Any going to see the family? Anything like that?
I wish. But yeah, nothing till
back to work.
then. Yeah. Nothing till then, and then I'll compete in DC in April. But yeah, until then, just
Did you make
lots
the
of training.
CrossFit Games already? Like, how's it working? I know they switched things up.
Yeah, so I haven't qualified yet. So the goal at Wadapalooza is to qualify there. And so what I have to do is a bunch of the athletes going have already received an invite through the CrossFit Open. So I just need to beat everyone that does not have an invite yet, like me. So yeah, that's the goal.
You can beat them with a baseball bat if you have to, right?
That might be frowned upon.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Bad advice. Andrew, where can people find you?
You guys can hit me up on Instagram at I am Andrew Z, and make sure you guys are following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power at MB Power Project on TikTok, Twitter. Dude, it's because you're sitting right here. Smokey's driving me nuts. Anyways, make sure you guys subscribe on iTunes. Give us a rating and review. We've been reading reviews. We're not going to do one today because I don't have them pulled up, but it's been really cool to kind of give you guys a shout out and thank you for taking the time to do all that. And Nsima, where are you at?
Yeah, seriously, thank you, peeps. And at Nsima Inyang on Instagram, YouTube, and Byte, and Nsima Yin Yang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark?
Colleen. where can people find you?
Yeah. I on Instagram I'm at Colleen Fotsch, and I just started a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So
There we go. What's
also-
going on there?
Yeah, so it's been really cool. So my brother is doing all the editing, which is awesome.
that's cool.
So he has a huge passion for filming, editing, and
Oh,
stuff.
that's convenient.
Yeah, I know,
There you go,
seriously. And so we've actually talked about starting a vlog for years, and I was just not, long story short, was not at a point where I felt confident enough or anything to be on camera that much and to be able to, share my life that much. And, was coming up with all the excuses in the world why it wasn't a good time now, or I'll be ready when I get to whatever. And I was like, you know what, screw it. And so, yeah, if it wasn't for him either, I think it'd be a lot more difficult to want to do it. But it's so cool that I get to do something like this with one of my siblings. So
Is he yelling at you about like getting certain shots and stuff? Like you didn't get shit from today, you know?
No, but it's funny because like the first video we put out last week, so they're coming out every Wednesday at 12, and he put over, it's funny because he'll edit it together. Like I watch it before it goes up if I like, I'm like, I don't want that in there or, anything like that. But it was funny, like on the first video, I'm still new to like all this stuff and like catching things that will look cool in a vlog and stuff. And so here I am with my sister. We're going into a store and I'm filming me opening a door. And I'm like, yeah, here's some cool footage of me opening a door. Thinking when my brother's editing this, he's going to play music over it. So he keeps it in there and has like an editor's note. He's like, not as cool when you narrate it. Like, thanks, Connor. Which like it makes it funny, and it's cool that like we get to collab on this. Yeah, so it's a fun new thing that we're doing.
Is it just your name, the YouTube channel?
Yep, Colleen Fotsch. Yeah.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch y'all later.